Zachary Martin is suing his neighbor, Nancy Morrell, for property damage after his car was vandalized.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2151, Martin versus Morrell.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Martin, you and the defendant are neighbors.
Yes, ma'am.
How long have you been neighbors?
Moved into the subdivision in 2019.
That's how long you've been there?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you know how long the defendant has been there?
I think 2014.
Is that right?
2017, Your Honor.
Oh, okay.
And where do you live in respect to one another? You want to go over there and show me?
I live in this house right here. Or I did. I don't anymore. This house right here. And she lives right here.
You sold your house?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the defendant
She lives right here.
Where the blue car is?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. This is sort of a circular area, and from the circular area, you pull into your driveway. Is that right? Okay. It is your claim that the defendant keyed your car.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did this happen?
January 22nd, 2022.
The defendant says that she did not key your car. She has a counterclaim. She claims that she was falsely arrested and held overnight in jail.
That is a lie.
But just a
Okay.
That's her claim, that she was falsely arrested, that she spent a night in jail. She had to hire a lawyer, did hire a lawyer after her lawyer requested several adjournments. You were not, at least physically, in the courtroom at the time of the last adjournment, and the case was dismissed. So let's go back to prior to January 22nd. I assume that if you're alleging that the defendant keyed your car, that you have some negative history with each other.
Yes, ma'am.
Starting when?
There are so many. I mean, it started out when we moved in the subdivision. They were nice at the beginning, no issues. And then the kids started having, her granddaughter lives with her.
Okay, how old's your granddaughter?
She's 9 now. She was 8.
Okay.
They started out having some issues, as kids do. I mean, you know, that happens.
You have a child of a similar age?
Yes, ma'am. She's 11 now. She was 9 or 10 when we lived there.
And the two children had an issue?
I mean, you know, kids argue.
No, I understand that. I'm not going into who was right and who was wrong in the kids' argument. I don't really care. But when did that argument between the two children spill over to the neighbors?
Well, I guess the final straw was Labor Day weekend of 21, the Sunday before the Labor Day. We came home late. It was about 7 o'clock. We were working, and we told Jillian we were going home for a little bit, and she said, I want to swim in the pool. I said, all right.
Jillian is your 10-year-old?
Yes, yes. And of course, she said, well, that's boring, Daddy. I want a friend to swim with me. So I said, okay, one friend. That's it, because your brother's going to watch you, and then we're leaving to go back to work. So she goes next door to Patrick's house, which is the next door neighbor, and she asked Patrick to come over and go swimming. He comes over. At the time, I didn't know this. At the time,
At the time, the defendant's granddaughter was there.
Yes.
At Patrick's house.
Yes.
Got it. So your daughter went over and invited Patrick to come and swim.
Right. And not.
You had told her that she could have one friend in the pool, so Patrick left to come swimming, leaving your granddaughter alone.
Well, she had to go home.
She had to go home.
Yes.
She came home.
Just a second. Okay. That's what happened. Okay. You had a grandchild who had hurt feelings. I assume
she actually went over to go swimming. She thought she was invited too.
You had a child with hurt feelings.
And I went to ask what had happened.
Okay.
That's this big hoopla.
Okay. Now, your grandchild comes home. I assume she was upset. Was she crying?
Yes.
Okay. And that was about what time?
In the evening. I honestly can't remember.
Okay. And when she came home crying, tell me what you did.
Went out and, honey, what's wrong?
What did you do?
Are you okay?
Yes, and she told you what happened.
She said, I went over to Jillian's. She invited us swimming. And when I got there, her dad said only one person could swim.
Okay.
So she came home.
Okay, and what did you do next?
That's not what happened.
I talked to her, calmed her down, and I went over and said, hey.
You know, just a second. You walked from your house, where the blue car is.
Yep, around the corner.
Did you take your granddaughter with you?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
She's lying.
And what? Shh. If you do that again, I'm just going to dismiss your case. Do you understand that? And you know, it's easy.
I got it.
This isn't my case. It's your case.
I know.
So you walked alone to his house. Did you knock at the door? Did you go outside? I want you to tell me exactly what you did.
I don't remember if I went to the front door, if I went to where the pool is, and I do believe Mr. Martin was out there.
Okay, so Mr. Martin was out there, and you said it in that kind of a calm tone?
What happened to my granddaughter? Why is she crying?
Well, she told you why she was crying when she was home. She told you she was crying because she went over there to swim, and Mr. Martin said you can only have one person swim with you.
Which is totally out of character. The children swim together all the time.
You mean at Mr. Martin's pool?
At Mr. Martin's pool, and if they need another adult...
Just a second.
I go.
So they swim all the time in Mr. Martin's pool, so you wanted to know what happened on this occasion when he said only one person can swim.
Yes.
And you said it in just the same kind of conversational tone that I'm talking in, is my question.
I was very calm at the beginning, yes.
Oh, okay. And so you said to him what happened, and what did he say to you?
I don't remember exactly. It was to the effect of his son was going to watch them, and he could only have one child in the pool.
Right, that he wanted his son to have responsibility of only watching one other child other than his sister.
Correct.
Right, well, that sounds reasonable.
And that's fine.
Just a second. So how did it escalate? He said, I only wanted one child in here. My son's going to watch the kids. We have to go back to work. And that should have been it. Why wasn't it?
I don't know.
Zachary Martin claims his neighbor, Nancy Morrell, keyed his car and owes for the repairs. Nancy is countersuing for a false arrest and lawyer fees.
Now let's get to your version of what happened. Okay, so you said only one child. Her granddaughter went home. Her granddaughter, who's a little girl, is upset. Why can't I go swimming too? I got that. And?
This is a lie. Everything she told you is a lie.
Just a second.
She did not come to my house.
Just a second.
She did not come to my house.
If you say again it's a lie, I'm going to dismiss your case. Do you understand that?
Yes.
I asked you what happened.
She did not come to my house.
Okay.
Her daughter came to my house.
Just a second. You mean her granddaughter's mother?
Yes. I never talked to her.
Before my daughter went over, I had gone over.
She did not.
Oh, no, just a second. Yeah. Now I don't believe you, Miss Morrell. Now I don't believe you, madam. I watched your eyes. I just watched it. Now, uncross your arms. So, her daughter came over first.
No,
Yes.
I
Well,
went
she
over.
never-
I don't want to hear you.
She never came over. The daughter came over. She bypassed my front door and went to the side gate where the pool is. She told my son to go get me.
To go get you.
To go get me. I came out and she called me a jerk. You should let her swim in the pool. Blah. I just told my daughter, look, you can have one friend because your brother's watching you. It's not fair for him now to watch 3 kids. Just 2, that's all. I told her, I said, look, I don't know what you're talking about. I said she could have one friend and that's it. She proceeded to call me a jerk. She said some other choice words I'm not going to repeat, in which case I did cuss her out and told her to get off my property and not to come back again, anybody in her family, or I would file trespass charges.
Okay. And that was on the Sunday before Labor Day.
Yes, ma'am.
And when did this incident happen with your car?
January 22nd.
After that incident on Labor Day weekend, did you have any other contact with the defendant?
Yes.
When?
So I think it was right after Jillian's birthday on November the 21st. I think it was like a week, like December the 1st, I think. And this is really sick, but it got to the situation where she would watch my kid. And every time my kid would go to Aubrey's house or Patrick's house, she would take toys, she would unpack her stuff. And I told her, I said, look, you can't play with her. So they would wait 10 or 15 minutes till she got unpacked and get all comfortable, having a good time. She would send her granddaughter over there. She had to pack her stuff up and come home. She would come home crying many times. So then it got to the point where Patrick, he would come over to our house. He'd be over to our house all the time. They would get on trampoline, play video games, blah, blah, blah. So I was doing something one day and then the camera went off and I give me a load of my iPad. Here comes Nancy up my driveway. She knocks on the door and she says, can we play? And I said, no, you can't play. Get off of my property. File trespass charges if you come back. That was, the last time I interacted with her. Until she keyed the video.
Well, it's not my job to be judgmental in a social way, but I have to tell you, I would have handled it a little differently with her. She wasn't the one who behaved badly. I wouldn't visit her daughter's bad behavior on an 8-year-old. There are kids who live right around the corner from each other, and it seems to me that the bad behavior of a parent or a grandparent shouldn't impact on a child. The granddaughter is a nice little girl.
Well, if you say so.
Is she?
Well, she spread rumors about my daughter and said that, she told Aubrey that my daughter stole some of her toys, and that was a lie.
Okay. All right. Well, it sort of started to get nasty. Now let's get back to the keying of the car. So that happened in January. So tell me about the January incident.
Okay. So she got up January 22nd. It's a Saturday. She decided to walk her dog. She's walked her dog.
Oh, over there. Show me what you saw.
Okay. So she decided to walk her dog, and so she walks up the sidewalk.
Well, you didn't see that.
No, not right here.
No, you didn't see that.
When she gets about right here, which is Patrick's house, the mailbox is right here, you can see in the video. That's when the cameras detect motion. That's when I get the alert. So I see her walking the dog, and she's walked her dog past my house many times, but never gotten that close to my vehicle. So immediately I thought something.
Where was your car?
My car is parked right here.
In the driveway?
Yes, ma'am. So she walks the dogs, and she is right beside the view. I mean, you can see in the video, you can see her right hand go up. So I immediately run out of the house. I have a truck parked right here. I looked at my truck. I thought maybe she did something to the truck. I looked at it, didn't see anything. I went back outside and I said, well, wait a minute, let me go back outside and look at the Pathfinder. So I walked back out and looked at the Pathfinder, and that's what I discovered, the scratch across the back. It's bright white, so that indicates it's fresh. I told her while she was standing there, you're going to jail, I'm gonna call the police.
Okay, step back. When you said to her, you're going to jail, I'm going to call the police, did she respond?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, now I'd like to see the video.
Okay. You can see as her hand goes up right there.
I'll take a look at it again. Is there any reason that you stopped behind his car? Is there any reason?
Stopped to sniff, I stopped with him.
You see her right hand right there.
I'm moving my arm as I walk.
Yes, and that's where the scratch is.
Okay, can I take a look at the photographs of the scratch, please? Okay, so based upon what you saw, you called the police. And based upon that, the police came, interviewed you, and viewed this tape.
Actually, I had contacted the police after he had yelled at me. He's a little incorrect. Could I show you where?
Sure.
I did walk my dog around here. His cars impede the sidewalk, so I moved. And I had completed my whole route over to about here, and he did indeed come out and yell at me. I caught a few words of it, said I'm walking my dog, waved my arms, and continued on. Mm-hmm. That's not the first time he has yelled at me as I've been walking, and I went home and I filed an incident report, and I do have that.
Just a second.
The second time I've been walking and he's come out and yelled at me, it's very unnerving.
That's a lie.
We're very far.
Sorry.
It's going to cost you getting your car fixed. It's something you don't understand.
I have it.
Something you don't understand. I'm allowing both of you to tell me your sides of the story. You can't say that's a lie. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm not cutting you off. I let you tell me your story, sir. I let you tell me what happened, and I want to give the defendant the same opportunity. You can't interrupt her. Now you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I will tell you what I don't understand, Miss Morell. You see, if I had got into a kerfuffle with him, which you had, because he said you and your granddaughter, which I actually think was socially wrong with regard to your granddaughter, but with regard to you, he doesn't want you there, right? I wouldn't walk up a cul-de-sac to go past his house. If it were me, I see plenty of space where you can walk. You can cross the street from your house and walk in the street the other way. And then when you come back, you can walk the other way. You don't have to go inside that cul-de-sac to walk anywhere near his house. That's looking for trouble.
Accusing his neighbor, Nancy Morell, of keying his car. Nancy is countersuing for a false arrest and lawyer fees.
So you have a counterclaim, and your counterclaim is for false arrest. He didn't arrest you. The police arrested you. And the police arrested you based upon what they believed, after looking at that video, was probable cause that a crime was committed and probable cause to believe you participated in the commission of that crime, which is vandalism. He didn't make a citizen's arrest. The police made an arrest. And not only did they make an arrest, but they were serious enough to have you get a lawyer. Your counsel went in. I assume your new counsel asked for an adjournment. I assume your new counsel, you were there.
I believe so. I was not there, ma'am. I waited out in the hall, and my lawyer represented me.
Fine. So I assume that you knew that your lawyer was going to ask for an adjournment. The lawyer didn't prepare you for trial, did he?
No.
No.
Your Honor.
So he was. I'm not listening to you.
As a witness, can I just say something?
About what?
The trend that another gentleman he tried to accuse of scratching his car. We have.
Oh, I will.
Of that.
Just a second. That I'll listen to in a minute.
Okay.
The second time your case was on, did you go into court or did you wait outside?
I waited outside.
Then if you waited outside, you knew again your lawyer was going to ask for an adjournment. The first time the case was on, did you attend the court hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
Were you inside the court?
Yes, ma'am.
She was not there.
She was outside. Yes, ma'am.
The second time when the case was adjourned, were you in court?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she there?
Yes, ma'am.
Outside or inside?
She was outside.
Did her lawyer ask for an adjournment?
Continuance.
A continuance?
Yes, ma'am.
Same thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Did it happen more than twice?
Yes.
On the third time you went to court, did you go to court?
Yes, ma'am.
Was she in court?
Yes, ma'am.
Inside or outside?
She was outside, and what happened, I had sold the house, and we moved an hour away.
Just a second. You were there?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Now, I'm going to let you stand up now, and you're going to show me where he accused somebody else of keying his car in the back in January. Show me. No. Well, this says that on January 18th, which was 4 days before this incident, you reported another vandalism to a Nissan Titan.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the car that you saw her key or believe she keyed?
No, ma'am, that's a different vehicle.
That's what I thought. That's a different vehicle. That has nothing to do with this car.
Well, the gentleman that he accused of, he didn't even have arrested or didn't want to press charges.
Just a second. Okay, so now I'm going to let you stand up, and I'm going to give you my end of the riot act. Because if this is what you're deluding yourself with, I'm going to tell you. He didn't have video of anybody on the 18th around his car. In your wife's case, sir, he had prior experience with her. She had no business walking right in front of the house when there are plenty of other places to walk. If they are not on great terms, he had every right to call the police, show them the video, and they had every right to arrest her. Do you understand that?
I understand that, but
Good.
that doesn't prove that she scratched the vehicle. That doesn't prove that.
Just a second. That's what a trial is for, sir. That was up to a jury. What your wife is suing him for is for false arrest. He didn't arrest her. The police arrested her. Now sit. May I see the invoice? Have you had the car fixed?
Yes, ma'am. I have an estimate, and I also have the police report.
I'd like to see both. I'd like to see both. So the police officer indicated that after you were told about what the officer saw on the video, you've decided to make no more statements about the incident, and you were placed under arrest for malicious damage. The officer also reported that the scratch on the back of the car was fresh because there were fresh paint chips on the street that were red paint chips. There's a red car that came off that car, which demonstrates to the eyes of any layperson that since there's traffic back and forth there, if there are fresh scratches and fresh paint, it means it just happened. So your counterclaim for false arrest and anything addendum thereto is dismissed.
I did not do it, Your Honor.
Right, well, okay. Maybe the case was dismissed. That doesn't mean you're entitled to money from him. Police had probable cause to believe that a crime was committed and probable cause to believe that you committed that crime. The rest of it is up to a jury. So you have a beef with the police department, not with him. They had an absolute right to arrest you. I'm not giving you $2,500 for this scratch, sir. Get it out of your mind. Do you understand?
Why not?
It's not a $2,500 scratch.
I mean, that's an estimate from a
$500. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're done.
This court is adjourned.
Well, she was incorrect because I did not do it.
You know, we took an oath when we went inside to tell the truth, and she lied repeatedly, and she got mad at me when I said that's a lie, but it was a lie.
That he saw me walking by and looked at the car and said, oh.
The next day I called the police to see what happened, and they informed me they arrested her.
I thought they were there because I had called about him harassing me, and then all of a sudden they just said, you scratched his car. And I said, no, I didn't.
I think she should have stayed in jail longer.
They placed me in custody.
The lady does nothing but lie. She's a liar.
It was horrible.
I actually thought his behavior when the defendant brought her granddaughter over subsequently and said, can't she play? Because evidently there are 2 or 3 kids who live close by and they always played together. All of a sudden, the granddaughter is excluded from that play. There's a certain amount, as a parent, he should have had some sense of that and said, well, of course they can play, but your daughter owes me an apology. You know, if you're behaving like an adult, your daughter owes me an apology. I tried to do a responsible thing. I didn't want to let my son watch more than one stranger child in a pool, which is absolutely smart because, God forbid, something happened to one of those children, they would certainly turn around and sue him.
Yeah.
So he did the responsible thing. Was it hurtful to the other child? Yes. According to him, his daughter was playing at Patrick's house. She came over and said, you can't come, because they're little children. They don't understand. You can't come. Only one person can come. But you're a grown-up. So understand how that could be hurtful to an 8-year-old. Anyway, I think that they both behaved badly, and he's very smart to have moved out of that.
Out of the cul-de-sac, out of the neighborhood.
Yeah, could you understand why she would walk her dog there?
Yeah, I agreed with you that if you've already had even just a hint of distaste with any of your neighbors, I just walk on the other side of the street, just avoid it. And this seems like a perfectly avoidable house in the cul-de-sac.
You actually have to
go into his loop in order to make the loop. So I don't know. I think both sides questionable, but I'm glad that he got something that you were willing to give him for his car.
Yeah, get your car fixed reasonably, and the police absolutely had a right to arrest her.
Yeah.
There was a complaint. They looked at the complaint. They saw the damage. They saw it was fresh. They saw her right there on the video. They had a history of bad feelings between them. They had an absolute right to arrest her.
Yeah.
Too bad. I feel sorry for the little girl.
Morgan Larson is suing defendant Chris Bumgardner for vandalism after his 16-year-old son damaged her car.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everyone.
Hello, Judge. Case 2101, Lawson versus Bumgardner.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Ms. Larson, it is your claim that the defendant's son, I assume that's this young man over here, vandalized your car. And he vandalized your car by smashing in a side mirror.
Yes, ma'am.
Which required you to be without a car for a day while they fixed it. So you want his father, who was actually present at the time, to pay for the damage.
Yes, ma'am.
From what I gather, this happened on Father's Day, which was June 19th
Yes.
of this year, and you were going over to visit your father
Yes.
for Father's Day. Stand up. What I gather from your complaint, was he sleeping?
Yes, he was.
Okay. Some sort of an altercation happened, which you'll tell me about in a moment. His father was called.
Yes, ma'am.
His father came. This kerfuffle continued, and when they were on their way out, this young man, whose name is?
Caden Bumgardner?
Caden.
Caden.
Caden smashed in your passenger mirror, and his father says, well, he actually saw him do that, but it was just pushing in the window, the mirror, and really all you had to do was pull it out, and it would have been fine.
Right.
That's your defense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So let's start out when you arrived at your father's house. What time?
I arrived at my father's about, I would say, about 11:15.
Okay. What happened?
And it woke up Caden in the process. Caden got upset.
What did he say? How did you know he was upset?
He started screaming and pretty much saying, why the heck are you coming in here, waking everybody up? You have no right to.
Okay.
And then after that, Caden got up and started yelling, started punching the walls, screaming. My father went in there, and then his father, Chris, ended up getting called to come get Caden.
How far do you live from where Miss Larson's father lives?
About 7 miles away.
How old is your son?
He's 16.
Is he the oldest one of your children, in the middle?
The youngest.
Any other children at home other than him?
No, ma'am.
So he's the baby and he's home?
Yes.
Who sets the rules for him?
Well, I do.
Where did you think he was going?
No, I knew he was over they had something to do for Mother's Day, and then they had...
That was Father's Day.
Well, I know, but I'm saying for the entire...
Mother's Day is in May, Father's Day is in June.
But they
usually don't have carryovers.
Planned, I don't know. But anyhow, yeah, he was over there.
Times have changed, life has changed. The only time you got to sleep outside your house when I was growing up was when you were outside in a pine box or a white dress. That was it. Those were your choices.
Yes, ma'am.
That's the way you could leave your parents' house, right? I chose the dress. All right. Now, Caden, I'm going to come around to you because, you know, we're not talking about somebody losing 2 pints of blood or somebody losing a finger.
Yeah.
I know what it's like to wake up a teenager at 11:30 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually ready for dinner at 11:30 in the morning. But teenagers, you know, they're still growing, so they sleep late. But you were particularly annoyed when Miss Larson came in, right?
Yes.
Why?
Well, she did put it the right way, but she didn't put it the right way because...
But just to tell me why.
Well,
Don't look at her. Talk to me.
She didn't just wake her up. She came in there loud.
When she walked in, Caden, to a room in her father's house, what did she say? And tell me in what tone of voice she said it.
She said in a excited voice, but not like a mad voice, excited voice.
All right, and that got you mad.
No, that's not what got me mad.
What got you mad?
By the time I could even finish my sentence, she's already busted in through the door and was in my face saying, "You got something to say to me."
Just a second. You're not following me. She came in, and the first thing you said was she was talking too loud, and I want to know what you said to her.
I didn't say nothing to her.
Nothing.
Nothing. I didn't even look at her.
And then she left, so...
She cussed at me, but then she walked in there and she later said...
Who cussed at you?
Her. And then she later said
Well, just a second. I didn't get to that part, that she cussed at you. If you didn't say anything to her, what would she cuss at you?
Because she got a phone call from her saying that she wants me to get ran out of the house. That's how this all started.
Just a second. Oh, that's a different story. Okay, so what you're saying to me is you believe that she came over for the purpose of getting you out of the house.
I believe so, yes. Because that's what I got told.
Well, let us assume for a moment that's true. That would sound right to me. Get him out of the house. It's 11:30 in the morning on Father's Day. We want to have a party here. Get him out of the house. That would sound right on the money to moi. Right on the money. I mean, if that's what it was about. So I don't care if that's what it was about or not. Okay. Your father comes. What happened when you got there, sir?
When I showed up, I went to the door, I knocked on it, they answered the door, it was pretty chaotic.
Look at me.
It was pretty chaotic.
Describe what chaotic is.
Okay, there was a bunch of yelling and screaming going on between Caden, my son, and the plaintiff.
And Miss Larson.
Miss Larson, yes. And I told my son, I said, hey, you just need to step outside and let me figure out what's going on here, and I'll be right out. I tried to talk to Mark. Mark come out of the room.
Who's Mark?
That's the father. He was being very disrespectful, he said, and he said he wanted him to leave. I said, okay, that's no problem. I'll get him
Just
out
a
of here.
second. The father came out of the room and said, I want Caden to leave.
Right.
And did he leave?
When I come and got him, we left. Yes, we did.
And he walked out the front door.
Yes, he did.
And when he walked out the front door, he passed the plaintiff's car.
Yes, I believe so.
What do you mean? You wrote it in your answer, sir.
Yes, I
so
did.
the answer
Yes,
is
I did.
yes.
Yes.
And you saw him do what to the mirror?
Larson claims Chris Bumgardner's 16-year-old son, Caden, vandalized her car.
Now, you saw him do what to the mirror?
Push it in.
Okay, very good. Now, do you have photographs of the pushed-in mirror?
I do.
I'd like to see it.
Okay, one moment.
Just for my own curiosity, you knew that it was wrong for him to touch that mirror.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and if what you say is he just pushed the mirror in and all it had to do was be, you believe, to be clicked out?
I believe to be
just,
clicked out.
Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you say to him, don't touch somebody else's property? That's what this is all about.
Well, I
Your
believe
temper.
I did say that to him.
Just
I
a
said,
second.
Don't put your
Well,
hands.
then why didn't you pull out the mirror if that's all it was? If you say the only thing
because
wrong
she
with the
was
mirror is
coming
that it has to be pulled out, why didn't you do that? You didn't see him touch the mirror.
No, I did not.
You were there.
She was right behind us.
She didn't see it. You saw it. So my only question to you is, if you saw it and it was that minor thing, and you know what it is, either you can click the mirror in and then you pull it out. I'm always afraid to click it out that I'm going to break it.
Exactly.
You're not suggesting that anybody else touched this mirror to damage it. No. Okay, let's see. What did he use on the mirror, sir? What did he use to hit the mirror?
I believe it was his hand.
When you say you believe it was his hand, did you see what was in his hand?
He had nothing in his hand.
Did his hand get bloody?
No.
Okay, Kevin, would you turn these over to the defendant, please, and get from the plaintiff an estimate for the damage?
That's not what.
Well, they ripped it off there.
Well, yeah, clearly, because that's not what it would look like when I see. Because when he walked by, he just simply, okay. And I said, now, Caden, that's enough.
So you had a $500 deductible on your insurance?
Yes, I did.
And you had it fixed?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And you paid $442.74. Good. How long did it take them to fix it?
I would say about a month with the parts being on back order. And
but you had the use of the car all that time?
No.
Oh, of course you did. Okay. Just want to see what you have for a car rental.
Your Honor, I don't understand this car rental part of it. I've been without a mirror before.
Sir, you're not allowed to drive without 2 mirrors.
Then there was one in the cab as well. That's 2 mirrors, isn't it?
I don't know what you're asking me, sir, because at some point you just have to take the car, and let's say it takes a day once you get the parts. At some point you have to take the car in and you're without a car for a day. Well, then you can either be without a car for a day or you can rent a car for a day. I'm not giving her a rental for a month. I'm not crazy. You know, there's a certain amount of inconvenience that one endures when somebody else vandalizes a piece of their property. And that's part of the punishment.
Well, I understand.
Yeah, I'm glad you understand. Don't minimize what he did. I would have slapped him upside the head if I saw him take his hand and knock off somebody's mirror. I really didn't mean that. I don't believe in corporal punishment.
Amen.
I don't think you needed 15 days to fix this.
I didn't think so either.
Well, I certainly don't think so. But you're entitled to a day's car rent. So I put that down as $200, including everything, $642.74. Judgment for the plaintiff. Thank you very much.
This court is adjourned.
I didn't think that I needed to pay the whole $1,300 out of pocket.
I'm just glad someone finally held them accountable for what they did.
The mirror, I was walking past it and just hit it. Bam, you know what I mean?
I finally am getting reimbursed for the money I had to pay.
I knew what I was doing, and when I did it, I did regret it after I did it, you know what I mean?
I feel like some people need to control their children better.
It's also a sign of the times that this father did not own up to what he saw.
I will say he was on the more responsible side of parents than some that we've seen here. He said, I said, Caden, what are you doing? This is not how you act. This is not how you behave. So that I almost appreciated. But he didn't take it as far as you or I would have liked.
As far as knock at the door. I know this is hot. My son did something wrong. I'm going to pay for it.
Yep.
Whatever it is. I have to come into the 21st century kicking and screaming.
I'll try and help you as much as I can.
Thanks.
Stuart Selmond is suing his former friend, Elena Smith, for an unpaid car loan given to Elena after her release from prison.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, everyone.
Hello, Judge. Case 2166, Hammond versus Smith.
Thank you. Mr. Salmon, the long and short of this case is you met the defendant on some sort of a website. She was in prison at the time. You began to see her. She got out of prison. You gave her a certain amount of money that you consider gifts to her, but then she asked you if she could borrow money to buy a car. You gave her $2,600 with the expectation of being repaid, and this is your lawsuit, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. And your answer to him said, well, it was never really anticipated that I would give him back his money, only I said I would give him back if I got my stimulus money. I didn't get my stimulus money, so I'm not paying him back. That's what the case is about. Simple. So let me get a couple of pieces of information from you. From when to when were you in prison?
January of 2019 until June of 2022.
For what?
Several things. I did any thefts and stolen firearms.
And?
That was it.
Was there one indictment or more than one indictment?
One federal indictment and 23 counts for state.
Which state?
Washington.
Was it the first time you were in prison?
Yes.
Did anybody else go into prison as a result of the same case?
No.
At what point during your stay in prison did you begin to communicate with Mr. Salmond?
Somebody had put me on a prison pen pal website, which I wasn't aware of until I got a message from him. I took myself off the site. That site's usually for people to get things from people, money in their books, packages. So we started talking, but...
When? Give me a month and year.
It was in April of 2019.
So right away?
Yeah, about a few months after.
Right away. And you were in jail, so you clearly stayed in touch with him.
Yeah.
How often did you stay in touch with him?
We corresponded maybe initially once every couple of months.
And then?
And then I was taken from prison to Spokane in November of 2020 for a federal indictment. I was gone 6 months.
To serve time on a federal indictment?
Not to serve time, but to be indicted and sentenced.
And were you?
I was.
To what?
6 months.
In the same prison?
No.
Different prison?
Yeah, I was supposed to go after my state to go do my federal time.
Now, the government started to send out these stimulus checks, which, in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, were given to people who were suffering through the pandemic because they couldn't work, they couldn't feed themselves, they needed money to exist. And that's why the money was given out. I mean, I recall the letter that came with the stimulus money. It seemed to me, Ms. Smith, so I'm going to ask you, because I read your answer, which I found interesting. And you said that while you were in prison and communicating with him, several of your stimulus checks came. Where did they come?
They were going to be sent to his house.
Why were they going to be sent to his house?
Because inmates were having their stimulus checks sent to the facility. The facility takes 75% of it.
Now, so I knew this would get more interesting, and I have to sort of put it in my timeline. So you had to apply for the stimulus checks.
Correct.
And all the inmates filled out a form for the stimulus checks. Mm-hmm. The other inmates filled out forms which said that they wanted the stimulus checks, gave them their social security number and an address.
Correct.
And you put his address on your stimulus check.
Actually, he filed it for me.
Whoever, he put his address. Was it at your direction that he filled it out for you? Or did he just do it himself? I mean, I'm up to a casual.
Yeah, he filed online for me.
Because you asked him to?
Yes.
And because he used his address, while the government was taking 75% of those stimulus checks and taking it for your upkeep in prison, because there's a certain amount of upkeep. You have meals, you have doctor services, whatever you have. They took 75, leaving you 25%, I suppose, to put on your account in the canteen or to do whatever you want. Is that close?
Yes.
How many checks did you see?
None.
Because according to you, they went to his house, and since he couldn't find you, because you had been transferred to one prison or another, what did you do with the checks and how many did you get?
I believe I got 2 checks, and then they just all expired. You know, I never deposited them or anything.
Do you have them?
No, ma'am.
Where are they?
One of them I sent back.
And where's the other one?
Let's throw it away.
When did they send it, in 2020 or 2021?
I believe it was 21.
Your Honor, it was 2020.
Okay. But you never cashed any of them?
No, ma'am.
Good thing. Very good thing. No rhyme or reason to giving out stimulus money to people who are already being taken care of by the state, but the federal government, I know, was printing money like it was Mardi Gras, and sending money to prisoners is dubious thing. Sarah, you looked up some figures for me on, because I was curious about this case. How much money Kevin and I spent on sending money to prisoners, especially those who were in long-term, like lifers or whatever. She wasn't, but she got stimulus checks, 2 of them sent to him.
So there were over 1.1 million COVID stimulus checks, totaling over 1.3 billion sent out to incarcerated people across the United States throughout COVID. And out of those numbers, according to the letter from the IRS, some 163,000 recipients were serving life sentences who received the stimulus checks. But that's throughout the U.S., not just in Washington
not just the state of Washington. I got it. Okay. I don't know one guy that cold turkey goes on a prison website to get a pen pal. But the people that do that are sort of the same.
Stuart Selmond claims his former friend, Elena Smith, owes for a car loan he gave her after she was released from prison.
Then, Miss Smith, there comes a time when you get out of jail.
Correct.
During the time that you were in jail, once you reconnected with him, did he send you any money?
That's when he started. He never had before. I never asked, but when
you reconnected?
Yes, because I had lost my job being gone.
Oh, so you got
court.
out?
No, I had a job in the prison.
Okay.
But I was gone for 6 months for court, so when I got back, I lost that job. So that was the first time I asked him for help. But again, my stimulus checks were supposed to be at his house, so
but they were
I didn't know that yet.
Okay.
So.
Well, you asked him to fill out the form. Why did you agree to fill out the form with your address on the stimulus checks?
She said she had no one else to send them to.
Okay. Mr. Salomon, do you work?
Yes, ma'am.
Who do you work for?
I work at the hospital in Tyler.
What do you do?
I'm a nurse.
Now, Mr. Salmon, why wouldn't you ask Ms. Smith, hey, why do you want them at my house? I can't cash them. Why not just send them to the prison? Did she tell you?
No, ma'am.
Did you ask her?
No, ma'am.
All right, so he's not asking for any of that money back. He's asking for the $2,600 for the car that you wanted when you came out of prison. When you came out of prison, you lived independently.
I was in transitional housing.
Mm-hmm. And tell me how it came about that you asked him for money for a car.
He came and picked me up from prison, bought me a phone.
Okay, he picked you up. That was nice.
Yeah.
Anybody else pick you up?
No.
Who was that?
This is my best friend of 18 years.
Okay, did she pick you up?
No.
So he picked you up?
Yeah.
Okay, and what else did he do? He bought you a phone.
He bought me a phone.
He's not asking for that back. He bought you a phone as a gift, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Correct.
Yes, he bought you a phone so that you would be connected to the world.
Correct.
What's next?
Then he started cash apping me money
He
that
did.
I didn't ask for.
How much?
I have it all right here. The first one was June 13th for $50, June 14th for $50. This is prior to the car money.
So you said you needed some cash and
I never said I needed it. He just was doing it.
Okay, and he's not asking for any of that money back.
Right.
Now tell me about the car.
So I got a job offer, but I didn't have a vehicle. So he had been helping me out for a while.
Okay, so he's helping you.
So I asked him for money to get a car. This first stimulus check that he sent back, I wasn't getting, but the third one, I had to file a tax return in order to get that, which was only $1,400.
Oh, just a second. I don't care about your stimulus money. I don't want to
That
buy
was how I
you
was
a
supposed
car.
to pay him back.
I don't want to buy you a car.
But he bought me a car.
No,
with
no, no.
My stimulus money I was supposed
No.
to give him for only $1,400.
No. You have to understand something. You have no proof, and I actually believe him when I say he didn't cash your stimulus checks.
Yeah,
He returned them. You don't even think that he cashed them because
No.
that would have been a federal offense and he would have gone
Yeah,
to jail.
he didn't.
And you didn't want to go to jail, right?
No, ma'am.
And truth of the matter is, stimulus money is, in my view, not for anything other than try to keeping everything in balance while there was COVID. Now, you got out of jail. Owning a car is sort of a luxury. You have to have a car, you have to have insurance, you have to be able to keep it up. That's not what stimulus money was for. So let's go back. He didn't collect any of your money. He was nice enough to put in $50 here, $60 there, gave you a phone so you would be connected. Now you tell him that you need money for a car. On what date do you tell him you need money for a car?
On June 15th.
And he gave you $2,600.
Correct.
And that was in June of 2022.
Correct.
Now, I'd like to see the emails following up when he's asking you for repayment of that $2,600. Do you have any?
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to take a look at it. Where is the car now?
It was totaled. It was a recent car accident.
When?
December 2nd.
Who was driving it?
I was driving it.
Did you have insurance on it?
Yes.
Did you hit another car and the other car hit you?
The other car pulled out in front of me and I hit them. They were at fault.
The insurance payout on the claim? To whom?
To myself.
How much?
Just for the damage of the car, it was $3,200.
So what did you do with the money?
I bought a new vehicle.
What kind did you get?
2008 Pontiac G6.
How much did you pay for it?
I paid $2,700.
So if you gave him back his $2,600, you still would have had a down payment enough for that car.
I paid cash on this vehicle.
I know what you did, but if you had done the right thing, you would have paid him back his $2,600, and you would have had a down payment, and you would have been paying off the car.
So there was no agreement for me to pay the $2,600. It was to pay him back with my stimulus of only $1,400.
Well, I've read this here, and you know what I get out of these text messages back and forth? Something that people who are takers do all the time. They justify taking because you say, you're just so blank petty. You make more than enough, and I'm making $500 a week. I have real life problems. So you're saying that the money isn't really that important to you, and it's that important to me, and I have a child to take care of, and you don't. You make $500. You live alone, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. You live alone. You were a good sucker for a while, and now I'm not giving you back the money. I'm cutting you off. Did you change? Yes.
He continued to cash app her after the $2,600.
Up here.
After June 15th, when he sent her the $2,600, he sends her unsolicited another $700 dating all the way to August 11th.
Well, that's terrific. Isn't he a nice person? She's been your best friend for 17 years.
18, yes, ma'am.
18 years. Do you work?
I do.
What kind of work do you do?
I work in healthcare.
You make a living?
I do.
You have a car?
I do.
You have a home?
I do.
Right. Why didn't you give her money?
I was in the middle of a divorce, and we were selling our home.
So the answer is you had other things. You work, that's 2 sources of income of her best friend for 18 years. And she could have come to you. And
she did, and I gave her money.
Okay, well, she seems to be, you can sit down. She seems to be a taker. And if he gave her more money, even after this $2,600, he's not asking for that money back.
He also told me to keep the stimulus check to pay the car.
Oh, I'd like to see it. Not that it's important.
No, it is.
Because
he told me to keep it.
Just a second, because I'm not. You didn't get another stimulus check.
No, I didn't get the stimulus.
No, you didn't get another.
That was the only stipulation to paying him back was with that.
No.
Check.
No.
Yeah. He was tracking my iPhone. He was.
Stuart Selman has accused his former friend, Elena Smith, of refusing to pay back a car loan. Elena claims the car was a gift after she was released from prison.
He was being a really nice guy. I sent you money so you and your daughter can do some stuff, like you can get some of your precious Papa John's. Seems like a nice guy.
She never asked for any of it. She even had him blocked during that.
She spent it.
Yeah.
Just a second. She spent it. Do you know, there are times when I remember both myself and other family members erroneously received money. I don't know if it ever happened to you. Okay. Erroneously, a deposit comes into your checking account. You don't know where it comes from. Well, somebody put it in there mistakenly, right?
This wasn't mistaken.
Just a second. Same theory, madam. Somebody put it in there mistakenly. Well, you can either report it to the bank and say, I don't want any more of this money. It feels uncomfortable to me. Or you can say, listen, I'm going to hold this in my account and see if they come after it, see how long it takes them to find it, right? Or you can do the honest thing. You pick up the phone and you call and say, this money doesn't belong to me and I'm not going to spend it. Similarly, even though the money was unsolicited, your friend was a user. Your friend was a user. She started out by saying, people use these online websites for prisoners because they want stuff. Is that what she said in the beginning?
I also said I took myself off of it. I didn't put myself on it.
Just a second. Whether you did or did not, I don't know, but you certainly benefited from it.
How?
You took his money. Somebody that you met, you took, according to now you said $50 twice is what he sent. Now your friend says, oh no.
This is after.
Oh no, I know exactly what you said, madam. I know exactly what you said. You said, no, that was after the $2,600. But for somebody who says, I wouldn't want to be in that site because other people were using that site to get people to give them things, and I took myself off that site, well, there's no further reason for you to stay on the site. You had your sucker.
No.
No. This is after she came out of jail.
It took 3 years. 3 years for me to ask him for anything. So if I was going to use him, it would have been the entire time. I stopped having communication with him because he was tracking my iPhone. He was constantly blowing up my phone. He wanted to have me do inappropriate sexual things to him. He became a weirdo. He sent me an email.
Madam, I have to tell you something. It takes one to know one. It takes a weirdo to know a weirdo.
No.
If you're in prison.
No.
To me.
No.
Maybe not to you.
The things that he asked.
Sit. If you're in prison, a woman in prison, you said the women in prison go on this line so that people, weirdos. I mean, I have a very large family. Really large extended family. I don't know one guy that cold turkey goes on a prison website to get a pen pal. I don't know. I'm sure that there are people that do that, but the people that do that are sort of the same people in my mind, and I know it's an old mind, are the same sort of people that have themselves shot out of a cannon or will jump off a 9th-story building with a parachute and see if it works. A little bit crazy. A little bit. You know, right? Even when you marry somebody who's doing a life term in prison, I think it's sort of an interesting story. I wouldn't recommend it for my granddaughter. So the fact that you did a substantial stint in prison, leaving a small daughter who was taken care of by whom?
Her father.
By her father. Still taken care of by her father?
Yeah.
So you have a place in your life that's sad that she's not with you, but it gives you the ability to create a life for yourself because you're free. So you can create a life for yourself. This man says, I was a very nice man. I made you more comfortable while you were in jail, a little more comfortable, and when you got out of jail, I also sent you money. Now, if you're telling me, and your friend is suggesting that he wanted some sort of a quirky quid pro quo, that's a reason to cut him off. It's not a reason not to pay him back. Judgment for the plaintiff in the amount of $2,600. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
But we were just friends. You know, she just said a lot of things that weren't true. Like, I never asked anything from her. And I mean,
I thought he was lonely. He goes on vacations by himself. He has no friends.
I didn't keep cashing after I was blocked and stuff. So
I thought he wanted a friend, and he was trying to buy my friendship, obviously.
no reason. She's just making stuff up now. Character assassination.
Right after my release from prison.
Be careful who you loan money to.
Don't get a pen pal.
No more prison pen pals.
So this is something they don't teach in law school.
I'm ready.
If something doesn't make sense to an otherwise sensible person, you have to know there's a gimmick attached to it. You know, if something walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck.
Yep.
Now it may be a mongoose, but if you'd be pretty safe in saying, you know, walks like a duck, talks like a duck. So it's not a duck, it's a mongoose. But if you come from a relatively simple background and you know a lot of people, and you don't know anybody who's pen pals with a prisoner. There are a lot of people, because there are lonely people. People in prison are lonely, and there are sometimes lonely women who start to communicate, even just from a sympathetic Good Samaritan kind of coming from that direction. People should know that if a stranger is giving you money, under those circumstances, there's got to be a catch there someplace.
I mean, I know my brain stems from your brain, so maybe we're just on the same track here, but I would never accept money from someone who's seemingly just giving it to me because. There's always a string, there's always an attachment, even from people that you know. But definitely with strangers, there's strings. Otherwise, why are they giving you the money in the first place?
Right.
I think she knew what she was doing, and even if she didn't sign herself up, even if we take her at her word on that, she knew what the people on that site were about.
Oh, well, she was very clear.
Yep.
She knew that people in prison were going to be entitled to get stimulus checks, but they were to be directed to the prison because the prison would take out 75% of those checks, which would cover your care. The government's still taking care of you, but they're not taking care of you twice.
Yeah, so basically the government is paying twice for you.
And so in order not to do that, she concocted this scheme.
Found someone who would be okay with the other end.
Sending it to them. And I'm sure that didn't come to her genius head alone. Somebody in prison said, this is what you do in order not to keep the 75%. If somebody else do it, your girlfriend, your...
Kaloyan Popyanchev is suing fellow motorist Spencer Gilbert for car damage.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case number 2084, Popyanchev versus Gilbert.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Popyanchev, you were driving in your car, 2008 BMW.
That's correct.
And that was on the 14th of November of last year. Tell me what time of the day this accident happened.
It was approximately 3:15 p.m.
So daylight hours?
Yes.
And tell me where you were going.
I was going eastbound on Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills. I was driving...
Eastbound on?
Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills. I was driving in the right, so-called slow lane, when I tried to make a right turn.
Where?
It's an intersection. The name of the street is Palm Drive.
Is that intersection controlled by a light or stop sign?
No, there is no stop sign or a light.
At that intersection?
That is correct.
I assume somebody has a video or a photograph of that section that would demonstrate that there is no light. You do. Is there a light or a stop sign at that intersection?
No, Your Honor, there's not.
Did you put on your signal indicating a right turn?
Yes, I did.
How far from the corner?
I can't stay distance, but it was approximately 5 seconds before I reached the intersection.
Was there traffic that day?
Yes.
A lot?
Very light. It was Sunday.
So far, Mr. Gilbert, is that correct, that there was light traffic on that day?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you were traveling on a motor something called a Vespa, which is a small
scooter, yes, Your Honor.
but motorized.
Yes, ma'am.
And I don't know about these things, does a Vespa have to be registered and have a license plate on it?
I do have
It's
a
yours.
license plate on the Reddit.
Okay, so your Vespa is registered as a motor vehicle, and you have a license plate.
Yes, Your Honor.
Now tell me what happened, sir.
As I proceeded to make a right turn onto Palm Drive, I just heard an airflow. It was a big bang. It was an impact.
On your passenger side?
Yes, on my right passenger side. And I realized that there was a small motorcycle or a moped that hit my vehicle.
Hit your side. And you were the person riding that Vespa?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. May I see the damage to your car?
Yes.
Sarah Rose, get me the price of the 2008 BMW 7 Series.
Will do.
Thanks. What you're talking about is this damage, sir. Is that correct?
Yes, front passenger.
I see.
Yeah.
I've just made a circle. Can you see the circle that I've made?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And that is, Mr. Gilbert, where you hit him with your Vespa.
It's where he hit me with his car.
No, he can't hit you sideways, sir.
He sidestepped me.
He can't hit you sideways, sir. He can't slide into you. Now, whosever fault this was, I'll try to figure it out. But you hit him because this is the area of impact. Cars don't go sideways, they go front. You have pictures of your Vespa?
Yes.
I'd like to take a look at them.
Your Honor, based on a 100,000-mile BMW 7 Series, between $4,700 and $7,800 is about the range.
I just want to know, because I have to see what this kind of he's suing for $10,000, which is ridiculous. That doesn't show me much, actually. Okay, so I can't see the front of your Vespa, sir. I assume that the front is the end that's damaged because I see the back.
Yeah, the front end was completely
just
collapsed.
A second. So the
from
front
impact.
of your Vespa was damaged because that's where you hit him with your Vespa.
No, Your
The
Honor,
back
that's
end
incorrect.
was not damaged, nor does it look like the sides are damaged. These are the pictures you gave me. The only thing I can't see is the front crushed end. Am I correct that I can't see the front crushed end? Okay.
Yes.
So now I'm telling you that based upon these photographs, yours and his, you hit his car. Okay, now that's the chart. Whose chart is that?
It's from the police report.
Great. Now, the police report doesn't show a bike lane there or any other lane. It shows that there's a car traveling in a car lane and the Vespa hitting. See, he can't hit. You can hit. He can't hit you. Now, tell me, sir, why is it that you were driving where you were? You were behind him initially.
No, Your Honor. I was traveling eastbound down Sunset, heading to work. He was right next to me. When we got to Palm, he turned into me, pushed me. I barely was able to keep control of my vehicle.
Is what you're telling me that your Vespa was never behind his?
Kaloyan Papyanchev claims fellow motorist Spencer Gilbert owes for car damage after hitting him with his Vespa.
Is what you're telling me that your Vespa was never behind his?
No, I was never behind his vehicle.
Do we have any other video?
I do have a dash camera video of the...
May I see it, please? Play it again, please. Start from the beginning. So let's go slowly. Okay. Well, it's clear to me, Mr. Gilbert, that you came up behind him. Just go back a little bit. You weren't right next to him because...
I was next to him because as he slows down to make his turn, that's when he makes contact with me. I was right next to him the entire time.
Impossible. May I see the police report, please?
Yes. There's actually 2 police reports.
May I see them? Was anybody given a summons on that day? Nobody. Neither party was given a summons. Is that correct?
Not that I know of, Your Honor.
Okay, so this is the narrative after witnesses were questioned, and the opinion based upon the witnesses' testimony and yours, and the fact that the police officer actually heard in the video the clicking of the turn signal indicating a right turn approximately 5 seconds before the right turn was executed according to the police officer as a result of viewing the cam that he had, the video, that he was making a slow right turn. He had turned on his signal approximately 5 seconds before, and you were coming up on him on your right. And it says, based upon the video footage, I determined that the first car, and that would be his, should not have been placed at fault for this collision because he activated his turn signal and made a safe turn to go southbound on Park Drive. The fault of the collision is on the part of Mr. Gilbert for violating 21755 CVC, which states in part that the driver of a vehicle may overtake and pass another vehicle on the right only under conditions permitting that movement safely. I'm reading you the police report. Do you have another police report?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Prior to this or after this one?
This is the only police report that I know of.
Oh.
I wasn't aware there was 2.
Well, this was a supplementary police report. What is the date of yours?
All I have is what my lawyers gave me.
Well, I'm going to show you this one, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
And this one was after viewing the cam.
Yes, Your Honor, my police report predates his.
Predates it. Well, that's after the officers looked at the dash cam, heard the signal, and saw you coming up from behind. I'll take it back now. I've seen the damage on your car, sir.
Yes.
Which, while I wouldn't like to have it on my car that's 14 years old, it is on your car. It's not worth $10,000. Your whole car isn't worth $10,000, sir. So if you want to show me a reasonable estimate for fixing that, I'll be more than happy to look at it.
Yes, I do. And this estimate was given to me by the only body shop that is authorized by BMW.
Well, find another body shop for a 14-year-old car. I'm certainly not going to consider giving you anything near the value of your total car for something that is on the door of one side of the car. Have you had the car fixed, sir?
I had the entire door replaced, but it's still...
Replaced by whom?
By a body shop.
Good.
Yeah.
And if you had the whole door replaced, you must have a bill. This you're not getting. I want you to get this right out of your mind. Your whole car isn't worth $10,000. Let's be serious. I don't have all day. Do you have a bill for the door that you replaced from a body shop, which is what I said a moment ago?
No, I do not have it with me. The vehicle is still due paint and dents and scratches repair.
Well, they're going to fix the car, and if they can fix the car for $2,000, have it fixed. That's my judgment. Judgment for the plaintiff. We're finished.
This court is adjourned.
Certainly not happy about it.
I'm happy. It is something.
The problems that this gentleman's caused my life.
It happened in about 2 seconds.
I was like riding right next to the dude and he just turned into me and I went into the wall and that was pretty much it.
I had to call 911 immediately because I wasn't sure if he's dead.
Because of what he did, I wasn't able to go to work for 2 weeks. I lost 2 of my jobs.
First thing to do is you call 911 and then deal with, the rest of the circumstances.
One theme that we see far too often is plaintiffs coming here or to any court asking for a large sum of money, in this case $10,000 for a car that wasn't even worth $6,000. And instead of showing us an estimate of fairy tale land of what was going to fix it, show me a receipt for what you paid to fix the damage.
Yeah, because he did fix the damage.
He fixed the damage already, replaced the whole door. You don't have a receipt for that. You don't have a bill. You don't have a nothing, which leads me to believe that it was a lot less expensive than $10,000. So I thought your judgment was generous, given that he had no proof. I would have said goodbye.
Well, he did damage the car. Not that I'm going into history, but as one who has, on occasion, hit a stationary object, even allegedly hit a stationary object, and get a little nick on a bumper on a car. It's expensive to fix a car. So he had a car that looked and perfect condition. It wasn't after it was hit. He's entitled to have it look like what it looked like before.
I just felt there was sort of a bait and switch with a $10,000 estimate,
Yeah,
but I already got it replaced.
Fixed. I think that he said that. I think that he said that unintentionally.
I also think he did.
It's okay.
Won't get one over on us.
No.
Case number 2029, McCray versus Onwaka. All parties, please step forward.
Brittany McCray is suing her former roommate, Lulu Onwaka, for a rental deposit, moving costs, and lost wages.
Miss McCray, you were looking for a room, and you rented a room in defendant's apartment. It didn't work out. You were unhappy. She was unhappy. You moved out. And now you want return of rent, deposit, moving costs, lost wages, and emotional distress. She also said, didn't work out. We didn't like each other. It just wasn't a good fit. So you were happy she left. That's either a yes or a no. You were happy she left.
No, ma'am.
You weren't happy you wanted her to stay.
No, ma'am.
Then you were happy she left.
No, ma'am, I wasn't happy she left.
Okay, this is what you say. Brittany, that would be you.
Yes.
This is your answer. Was messy, played loud music, brought friends in unannounced, damaged the washing machine which flooded our apartment, and without consent offered to adopt someone's dog. After that, I let her know we weren't a good fit and would not be renewing her lease.
No.
Now, that's what you said.
We'll not be renewing the lease for the
No,
apartment.
no. Doesn't matter. I just read you something. I read you your answer. Now, does that sound somebody that was happy with their roommate?
I define happiness for myself. I've lived in co-living where I've had to live with people I do not like.
What?
And make it work is what I'm trying to say. So
No.
that wasn't the
No.
issue.
Brittany McCray claims her former roommate, Lulu Onwaka, owes for a rental deposit, moving costs, and lost wages. Lulu is countersuing for property damage and storage fees.
Brittany was messy, played loud music, brought friends in unannounced. She damaged the washing machine, flooded the apartment, and without my consent offered to adopt someone's dog. After that, I let her know we weren't a good fit and wouldn't be renewing the lease. That's what you wrote. Do you want me to show that to you?
No, you are right, and that is what I wrote.
Absolutely. Well, then I don't know why you have a passive-aggressive attitude, because I'm the only one who's passive-aggressive. Then you were happy she left.
No.
Okay, well, you're ridiculous. Then you're a masochist. Somehow you want to live with
Probably
somebody.
I am.
You want to live with somebody who's messy, loud, floods your apartment, weren't a good fit, and yet you were happy with that. And I don't have to define happiness.
Yes.
I know that if I lived with somebody who was messy, sometimes loud,
Okay. So each his
he
own.
broke the dishwasher and flooded the apartment because they put regular soap instead of dishwashing soap into the apartment, then it sort of bubbles all over. Now, unless I was either married to that person or they were one of my family, I wouldn't be happy with them. If I had a tenant like that, I would say, oh my God, what did I get myself into? I want out of this.
Okay.
But you were happy.
No, I wasn't. I stand in that.
Okay, then you weren't happy.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's what I asked you. You could have saved me all this dramatics. All right, so there we go. You were living in a room.
Yes.
You paid a month's rent.
I did.
Okay, how much rent did you pay?
I paid $1,300 and a $300 deposit.
And you lived there for about a month.
I lived there for 26 days.
And things didn't work out. You had a big argument with her back and forth. And as a matter of fact, according to you, you left for a couple of days.
I did.
Yes, because you were unhappy there and felt threatened, felt uncomfortable, whatever
Very
it was.
much so.
So you left for a couple of days. And when you came back, what was your intention when you came back?
So
No, look, not so. Look at me. You left because you were unhappy. You came back. What was your intention when you came back?
I never left because I was unhappy. I left because I was evicted from the property by the defendant.
Just a second. So you didn't leave the apartment after this disagreement?
Yes,
You did?
I did.
Okay. Where did you go?
I actually stayed with my friend.
So you left?
Yes.
On what date?
I left on June 1st.
You left the residence and stayed with your friend?
Yes.
And you stayed with your friend after the argument?
Yes.
Why?
I'm able to provide some backstory on
I don't need
the
any backstories.
encounter.
I'm just trying to get to a mindset of why the two of you think that you have a lawsuit against each other. Why do you bother wasting your own time, wasting precious court time when you weren't happy in the apartment, you paid for a month's rent. Certainly, you're entitled to your security back if you cause no damage to the apartment. You lived there practically a month, and you're not entitled to any more money because she didn't give you 30 days notice because you were just as happy that
She had abandoned properties.
What?
She had abandoned properties.
Okay.
She damaged the door, and I lost my deposit as well because of that.
Just a second. Damaged what door?
So,
No, just not so. Okay. Damaged what door? That's a door. An outer door, a door to her room?
Yes.
The door to her room?
Yes, she did that.
You have a photograph of the damage.
Yes,
I'd like to see it.
Please bear with me. I'm going to find it quickly.
The damage she's referring to was actually me attempting to change the locks on the door. I left after I had been informed by the
Just a
defendant.
second. So you acknowledged the door was damaged while you were trying to change the lock on the door?
I was trying to change the lock because during my time away, all of my belongings were still in the property, correct?
Listen to me. Did you damage the door?
No. The doorknob was removed, but the door is not damaged.
The lock was removed?
The lock was removed.
All right,
so
I'd like
that
to see.
the defendant would no longer have access to my room, to which she actually did enter my room while I was away.
Okay.
I left because the defendant actually informed me that I would need to get out by that date. After requesting a full month of rent, despite me not having even lived in the property for the original month of rent that I had paid for.
I don't care. Unless you can show me the damaged door and how much it was to repair it, and I want to see how much it was to repair it.
I don't have how much it was, but here is the lease agreement, and we paid $2,900 to be here for the security deposit.
Oh, she just took this out. That's nonsense. That's nothing.
I wasn't still able to get my deposit
Nothing.
back.
The agreement
I got
that I...
$1,700 back.
Understand this.
Okay.
This is not damage to the door. She took out a cylinder. All you have to do is put it back. Unless you have a receipt for somebody putting it back, you get nothing.
That's what I'm saying. We didn't put
you get nothing. You get nothing.
It's a maintenance request at the property.
I didn't ask you a question. You're entitled to your $300 security back.
That wasn't the security. That was for key and cleaning, and she was aware of it.
$300 security deposit. By the way, are you allowed to sublet rooms in your apartment? That's a yes or a no?
No.
Just a, hey.
No,
hey,
no,
don't look down. Don't look down. So the answer is you are not allowed to sublet rooms in your apartment.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, you are not allowed to sublet rooms in your apartment. She gets her deposit back. We're done. Thank you very much.
Court is adjourned.
I didn't concede to her requesting me to clean out a garbage at the apartment, and at that point, she lost her entire senses and asked me to move out of the apartment. Always pick your roommates more carefully.
Okay, so I don't have anywhere to go really on this case except to suggest that people who feel good, look like they have a job, look as if life is otherwise okay for them, and they move into this rental situation, which is very difficult. I never could understand it, to move in with a stranger in an apartment and just rent a room when you don't even know whether you're compatible, whether you have similar interests, similar time schedules. I always thought that was fraught with danger, and it keeps me in business here. But here you have two women that were both unhappy. You had an unhappy tenant, an unhappy landlord. You had a lease, but both of them were unhappy. It really didn't cost either of them anything. Plaintiff says she didn't get 30 days notice, so she should be compensated for $5,000 and her moving costs and storage
fees, some other things. It seemed like a wash to me when I read the papers, and to have your happiness after the end of constant struggle or battle with each other seemed like a win to me, but apparently it wasn't enough for them.
Apparently not. Well, unfortunate, but she's entitled to a security deposit back. She lived there for almost a month. She paid them.
For rent, a security deposit, and stolen property.
Court come to order. All rise.
Have a seat, please.
Hello, Judge. Case 2066, Michelonius versus Robertson.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Robertson, how long had you been living in your apartment prior to renting a room to the plaintiff?
I believe it was about 3 years.
You had been living there by yourself?
No, I had roommates previously.
When did the plaintiff move in?
I believe that it was January 1st of 2017.
2017?
It may have been 2018. It was the first, I forget.
It was 2018.
That's correct.
How long did he live there with you?
He lived there with me until September of 2021.
So far, that correct, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
So now let me understand this lawsuit. Mr. Robertson lived in his apartment for 3 years. You answered an ad for a room. You lived with him in his home as a tenant from January 2018 until September 2021.
Correct.
At that time, there was a dispute. We will get into that in a moment. There was a dispute. During part of that time, Mr. Michelonis, you did not pay rent. Is that correct? During COVID?
That's correct.
For what period of time did you not pay rent?
Well, there was, I had...
Give me how many months you did not pay rent?
There was...
You don't have to think out loud. How many months between January of 2018 and September 2021 did you not pay rent? Give me a number. That's a number.
4 months. Some months I paid partial rent. But there were 4 months that I did not pay any rent.
4 months, no rent. And how many months did you pay partial rent?
I believe that would have been 4 or 3.
So for 7 months, you did not pay your rent. Paying partial rent is not rent. Now, my question to you, Mr. Robertson, is this is an apartment that you rent.
Yes.
Or rented.
Mm-hmm.
From January 2018 until September 2021, was your rent current?
My portion of the rent was current.
What do you mean your portion?
My portion that I was responsible for.
No, it's your apartment. You're responsible for the whole thing, Mr. Robertson.
Yes.
Okay? You're responsible for the whole rent. And if what you chose to do was to say to your landlord, listen, I have a roommate, I'm just paying my portion of the rent, my roommate isn't paying his,
right,
then your rent wasn't paid.
Yes.
And I assume that your rent wasn't paid for the same period of time that he didn't pay you his portion of the rent.
Yes.
Was it for any period of time greater than that? Greater than the 4 months or the 7 months that he didn't pay rent?
I went through my bank statements, and they went back until, I believe, July of 2020, and that's as far back as my bank app lets me go.
Okay.
There were more months than that I received partial or no rent payments for.
From him?
From him.
I'm asking you about your landlord. If you didn't pay your landlord, you telling me your landlord didn't file an eviction against you?
There were several months that he did pay his full rent, and so that would have meant that the entire rent for that period.
Well, I know, but if the rent was not paid, did your landlord ever serve you an eviction notice?
No, there was an eviction moratorium in Alameda County at that point for unpaid rents due to COVID.
Gotcha. So that would it be a fair statement that you both took advantage of that? He took advantage of it, and so did you.
I wouldn't say that it was me trying to take advantage. I would just say it was my inability to cover the entire rent.
Your portion as well as his?
My portion was always covered.
Your portion was covered?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Mr. Michelonis, when did you move from month and year?
It was September of 2021.
And when did you leave there?
I believe it was the 3rd or 4th week of August of 2021.
So you both left the place at about the same time?
I left involuntarily, but yes.
Well, you left involuntarily, because that's what this case is about. Okay, so now I have the structure of it. Do you understand the structure of it?
I understand.
You understand the structure of it? I just want to make sure that people out there watching understand the structure of it. So you were the rentor, and you had an argument. It resulted in a protective order for somehow, some genius put him out of his own apartment because of these protective... You weren't in the hospital for anything, were you, as a result of an assault? No.
No.
You have no medical records there of being treated for any injury.
It was a harassment.
Just a minute. Do you know my husband harasses me every day? Every day. I couldn't think of evicting him. I mean, you do other things. So the answer is, you were never treated for any illness. You were never treated for anxiety at a hospital as a result of this harassment. As a result of your allegations, let us say of harassment, Mr. Robertson was ejected from his own home, from which you had not been paying rent. Your portion that you were supposed to pay contractually with him for months because of COVID. Am I getting this story right so far? I'm not finished yet, but so far, is there anything that I said was wrong?
I think that's pretty close. I mean,
okay, so that's pretty close. And now what you are seeking here is, should I say basically, and I hate that word, basically, but it's appropriate in this case. So all of those haters out there, she used basically, I don't care. It's appropriate here.
Mark Michelonis claims his former roommate, Christopher Robertson, owes for rent, a security deposit, and stolen property. Christopher is countersuing, claiming Mark owes him for rent.
Now, what you're claiming in your lawsuit is that after a review of the copy of the underlying lease, you found that you were paying the vast majority of the rent.
Correct.
And so you want a return of that money.
That's correct.
Under what theory in the law?
Well, basically that he defrauded
No,
me.
now you can't use a basically.
Okay.
I want to know what theory is there in the law that says if I own a building and I lease to someone the whole building for $10,000, and then I find somebody who is prepared to pay me, and I have the first 2 floors of the building. 3rd floor is vacant. I find somebody who's willing to pay me $9,000 a month just for the top floor. That makes me a good business person. But unless there is something that prohibits him from doing that...
There is, Your Honor.
Show me.
There's a clause in the lease.
No, just show me.
Okay.
I'm a lawyer. I can read a lease.
So the sublease that I agreed to with him incorporates the entirety of this master
Just a second.
lease.
I'd just like to see it, please, sir. I'd just like to see it. I assume you've highlighted what you want me to read.
Correct.
Okay. So what you're pointing to is that the landlord, his landlord, was not advised that you were subletting.
No.
Well, that's why signed by every tenant.
So that was one of the things, because if you look at the second lease, the one that was altered by Christopher to remove those areas so I wouldn't be aware, or I wouldn't be able to enforce them, was because he moved his boyfriend in without getting my consent. And so it says in there that he needs written consent. I understand that that doesn't apply to me, but he thought it did. And so he used whiteout on the other lease that I gave to you to obfuscate those terms.
I don't know how to put this to you, sir, other than to say, let me backtrack. What kind of work do you do?
I'm a web developer.
You work for yourself or for a company?
I do. I'm an independent contractor.
How long have you been doing that?
2 years.
Prior to that, what were you doing?
I was a system administrator.
For whom?
For a small company in San Francisco.
How long did you work for them?
6 years.
So for 2 years, you were an independent web developer, and you're still an independent web developer.
Correct.
And that's how you support yourself.
Right.
So you work out of your home.
Right.
And you've been working out of your home, you said, the last 2 years since 2020. This is 2022 or 19.
Right.
What do you mean, right?
So it would have been.
When you moved in 2018, were you an independent contractor?
No, I was going to school.
You were going to school?
Right.
For what?
When I went to,
Just
I
a
was,
second, for what?
For web technologies. It was a program for web development technology.
Did you go in person?
Yes, it was an intensive.
For how long?
It was 3 months. It was 8 hours a day.
Okay, so you went to school for 3 months.
Right.
During what period of time?
January 2018 to end of March 2018.
Okay, and at that time you were living with the plaintiff?
Correct.
Okay, so you needed a room for that 3-month period, and after that time, you supported yourself by being your own boss, by developing websites.
It took me a while to find a job, but yes.
What do you mean it took you time to find a job?
The interview process to get work, I was interviewing, it was very hard to break into that industry.
And so what did you do?
So I started taking on independent work.
So you never actually got a job outside of the independent work that you did?
That's correct.
So you support yourself by doing web development out of your home?
Yes.
So you used the home that you were living in, that room that you were renting, for not only your personal business, but you operated a place of business out of your residence.
Okay.
What do you mean, okay?
Yes.
Yes. I just want you to see how ridiculous you are. You want $10,000 because you overpaid what you consider your fair share of the rent. That's not going to happen. You come here, you didn't pay rent for at least 7 months because of COVID. You were working according to you. You were a web developer, still are. It's 2022 because you have no other job other than being a web developer. You stopped paying rent. You moved out after he did, correct?
Well,
did you pay?
I'd like to correct
in the
something.
month that you lived there, when you had put him out of his house because
they were moving out. I did not put him out of the house.
I thought that was a protective order.
It was, but they were, and I put in the protective order that they were living with me, but they were moving, and so.
No. They were living with you. You were living with them.
Well, yeah, we were living together.
No. You were living with the defendant. He wasn't living with you. You were renting a place, although you weren't paying rent from him, and the underlying landlord wasn't getting his money, all of his money, because he wasn't getting your money. And what's coming to me is that somebody got stiffed with rent, and that would be the landlord who rented you your place where you were living, because you didn't pay him the whole thing. You didn't pay him the whole thing. And now you want me, you're asking me, to award you $10,000 for overpayment of rent.
Your Honor, could I clarify something? The times when I didn't pay rent, I was not working. It was during COVID, so the first couple months of the COVID lockdown, I lost all of my contracts, so I didn't have any money. And so I was using the COVID, there was a COVID process where you could, basically say that,
There's no basically in there, only I used it once.
I did not have the money to pay rent. I was not just making money and not paying rent. I would not do that. I was broke. All of my contracts dried up because nobody had any money. I was working for small
So what are you
companies.
suing him for now? The government was very good to you. This is a very interesting America. It's a rent forgiveness, it's a rent moratorium. That doesn't mean the state where you live. What state do you live in?
California.
California. That doesn't mean the owner of this premises was given some sort of a break that they didn't have to pay for utilities, taxes, mortgage on the building, because it's used as a business. As far as I know, there wasn't a moratorium on that, but there was a moratorium on two seemingly able-bodied people to say to the landlord, I can't pay my rent. To add insult to injury, you think that I'm going to give you $10,000 because he charged you more than whatever the third or 40% of your occupancy of the apartment, and he shouldn't have? That's not going to happen, sir. So forget it.
Mark Michelonis has accused his former roommate, Christopher Robertson, of overcharging for rent and keeping his property. Christopher is countersuing Mark for unpaid rent.
Now, you gave him a security deposit. That is part of your lawsuit.
Correct.
So I want you to forget the overpayment of rent because it is ridiculous.
Okay.
So now let's go to the security deposit part of your complaint. Did he give you a security deposit?
He did, Your Honor.
Now, he didn't pay rent because of this moratorium
Yes.
on rent. Did you get your security deposit back from the landlord?
I did.
How much?
I believe I got the total amount for the entire apartment, which was approximately $2,000.
And how much did Mr. Michelonis give you as a security deposit?
He gave me $1,250 for the security deposit plus a $300 pet deposit.
Sometimes the pet deposit is refundable. Did you get the pet deposit back?
I don't recall specifically if I got that back from the landlord.
But you did get back your entire security deposit, which included his $1,250.
Yes.
Okay.
That's correct.
Let's hold that in abeyance for a moment, because now I'm going to go to your counterclaim.
Sure.
I think that's all I have to deal with. Oh, and property taken without permission. Did you get that property back? There was some...
I did not.
What property was it?
There was a stone Buddha carving. There was some dishes, some glasses.
Oh, give me a break. Do you have a stone Buddha carving?
I have the stone Buddha carving. I have a small statuette, a rooster that is his, and a small metal
Great. Would
serving
you
spoon set.
pack those up?
Yes.
Do you live close to each other?
I haven't been able to because of our mutual restraining orders.
Fine. Do you know where your local precinct is?
Yes.
Where is it located?
I believe that the closest one would be downtown for me, downtown Oakland.
Okay. You'll find out before you leave today. In 5 days, drop it off at the local precinct.
Absolutely.
Let him know when, and he could go pick up his Buddha.
Yes, I don't want
Great.
bad in my home.
Terrific. Now, money owed for COVID debt is your counterclaim.
Yes.
Which is what?
It is a total of $55.35, I believe.
For what?
That is the unpaid rent.
But you didn't pay his rent, you just told me.
Right, and so this is the outstanding balance of the rent that he never paid that I'm responsible for as the master tenant.
Oh, no, you just told me that you got your security deposit back. If you got your security deposit back, sir, that means that the landlord is finished with you.
According to the law...
Not according to the law. If you got your security deposit back, the entire security deposit, the landlord has written it off, because otherwise he would have taken your security deposit if you owed him or her money. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's very simple.
I understand what
it's
you're
very
saying.
Simple.
I wish I could explain that to them in your...
Well...
in your manner.
I want to tell you something. I've been here a long time. If a landlord is owed $5,000.
Yes.
He doesn't say, well, tenant owes me $5,000, but his apartment was clean. I'm going to give him back his $2,000 security deposit. That doesn't happen.
So would it
Only
be-
in the land of Oz does that happen.
They might live there.
No, they might live there, but I don't live there. Okay. You owe him $1,250 for security deposit. This case is over. Your counterclaim's dismissed. We're done.
Court is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
I would just like to bring
Goodbye.
Well, I was a little upset.
He's being a drama queen.
The clause in the lease was to prevent people from basically taking advantage of the fact that they've been living in a place for a long time and gouging rent for new tenants.
He said I was price gouging him because he was enough to pay more rent than he might have if he had done some more research.
They were trying to make it equal, and every place that I've lived in, there was always an equitable share of the rent. Like, no one was ever gouging anybody, so I felt that I was unjustly charged.
Well, I can't say it wasn't very satisfying to hear the judge call his claims ridiculous to his face.
Basically, he was leaving the front door open, making it so my dog could escape easily. He was filling the house up with smoke.
We both burned sage.
He was basically trying to get me riled up. He wanted me to move.
While I am disappointed that I won't be able to recover some of his COVID debt.
Basically, the moment that he was, it was inconvenient for me to be there, he tried to make my life miserable.
I'm glad that I will never have to see him again, and this is done.
I'm not living with roommates ever again. I've got my dog, and we're cool.
He was a nightmare, and I never have to see him.
Far be it from me to second guess another judge, but it would seem to me sort of outrageous unless there was some sort of a physical altercation. Why anyone, because he clearly was excluded from his house. He left first, and he said, involuntarily. Would anybody exclude
the original tenant? When I read the papers, I thought the same thing. I thought that was outrageous, that they would throw out the primary leaseholder on a lease in favor of his subtenant, which may or may not have been legal to begin with.
I can understand it if there was something more serious, but harassment, I just don't understand it. But
I didn't.
Mine is not to wonder why. Mine is but to do what I do. And I don't think that when you come into a court where you have at least participated marginally in a giveaway, to then come in and say, you know what, there's a technical thing. He wasn't supposed to charge me this much rent because I didn't occupy this much of the apartment, whatever. Ridiculous when you didn't pay rent for 7 months anyway. It made my job a lot easier.
Vậy là với cách gấp rất là đơn giản như những chiếc quạt mà chúng mình đã làm xong một bản cáo vô cùng xinh xắn và dễ thương rồi đấy. Chúc tất cả các bạn sẽ làm được một bản cáo thành công nhé. Xin chào và hẹn gặp lại.